You have to see the full video because Kansas farmland values just hit a wall. After years of explosive 22% annual growth, the market is flattening to near zero, and farmers are trapped. Interest rates above 7% on most farm loans, land values that quintupled in a decade but are now frozen, and 40% of lenders expect land values to drop in 2025. But here's what's really terrifying, Governor Kelly. The market isn't correcting because farmers want to sell. It's freezing because they literally can't afford to buy anymore. With operating loan rates in the 7 to 8% range and net farm income projected to keep falling, Kansas is staring down the barrel of a farm credit crisis not seen since the 1980s. And the state's response so far? 3 vetoed tax relief bills and warnings about unsustainable growth. Let me show you exactly what's happening to the Kansas land market right now. Kansas farmland values surged 22.8% in 2021-2022, then dropped to 13.6% in 2022-2023, and slowed further to just 8% in 2023-2024. That's a deceleration from rocket ship to crawl in just 3 years. But 2025? The numbers are even more alarming. Growth in farm real estate values in the 10th Federal Reserve District flattened in 2024, with non-irrigated farmland increasing less than 1% and irrigated land growing only about 2%. Robin Reed, a K-State farm economist, put it bluntly: the market is starting to flatten and land values are stabilizing, not continuing to increase at the rapid, unsustainable pace. Translation: the land boom is over. And it gets worse. About 40% of lenders anticipated a modest drop in farmland values in 2025, a slightly higher share than last year. Think about what that means. After a decade where Kansas farmland became one of the best investments in America, 56.9% growth over 5 years, lenders are now betting on declines. This isn't just a normal market correction. Kansas farmers are caught in a perfect storm of 3 deadly forces. First, the interest rate nightmare. Interest rates on farm real estate and operating loans are more than 125 basis points above the 20-year average. 3/4 of new farm loans in the first quarter of 2023 had interest rates above 7%, compared to just half of loans below 5% from 2011 through 2020. That's not a minor increase, that's a fundamental restructuring of what farmers can afford. A Kansas farmer with a $500,000 operating loan, at 5%, their annual interest is $25,000. At 7%, it jumps to $35,000. That's an extra $10,000 per year, money that has to come from already razor-thin margins. And here's the kicker. Even if the Fed cuts rates by 100 to 125 basis points, farm-level borrowing costs for operating loans will likely stay in the 7 to 8% range. The cheap money era is over, and it's not coming back. Second problem, Kansas farmers are now priced out of their own market. The average per-acre value of 7 benchmark farms in eastern Kansas is $5,551, up from $3,568 in 2020. That's a 56% increase in just 5 years. In the Northeast region, even worse, a 16% increase brought the average per-acre value for non-irrigated ground to $7,479, the highest average value and most rapidly increasing in the state. Now, do the math. At 7% interest rates, buying farmland at $7,479 per acre costs about $524 per acre annually just in interest, before you've planted a single seed, before you've made $1 in revenue. And what's the gross revenue per acre from Kansas wheat? At $5 per bushel and 50 bushel per acre yield, you're looking at $250 gross, not profit, gross. The numbers don't work anymore. That's why total cropland sales in Iowa tumbled 40.6% in the second quarter compared to 2024, and irrigated land sales in Nebraska declined about 23.8%. Farmers aren't selling because they're scared. They're not buying because they can't afford to. Third deadly force: farmers are running out of cash. Lenders reported that nearly all of our farm customers are realizing significant losses in working capital. Another said less ag liquidity in 2025 has caused an increase in loan demand for operating expenses. This is the warning sign. When farmers have to borrow just for covering operating expenses, they're burning through equity. And once equity is gone, so is access to credit. The Federal Reserve data shows exactly how bad it's gotten. The volume of new non-real estate farm loans declined about 5% from a year ago, alongside a decrease in lending for most major purposes. Banks are getting cautious, and when banks get cautious during an agricultural downturn, foreclosures aren't far behind. Government payments, the Band-Aid. Now, Governor Kelly and federal officials will point to government payments as the solution. A continuing resolution passed at the end of 2024 will afford producers $10 billion in direct payments, with farmers receiving anywhere from $30 to $40 an acre in economic assistance. K-State economist Robin Reed admitted those will influence the land market and the cash rental rates in 2025. If we didn't have those support payments, I think we would see things coming down more than we probably will. Translation: government payments are a Band-Aid, not a cure. They don't fix low commodity prices. They don't reduce interest rates. They don't make farmland affordable again. They just delay the inevitable. The 1980s parallel. And Kansas has seen this movie before. Robin Reed compared today's market to the last major boom-bust cycle. From 2010 to 2014, Kansas land saw a 29% year-over-year increase, unsustainable growth where land really doubled in 4 years. Then in 2014-2015, there was the biggest drop in profitability, followed by land values declining 18%, then 15%, then 10% from 1985 to 1988. That 1980s farm crisis destroyed a generation of Kansas farmers. Family operations that survived the Dust Bowl, the Depression, and 2 world wars were wiped out by debt they couldn't service. The parallels are haunting. Land values that doubled too fast, interest rates that made borrowing impossible, commodity prices that collapsed, working capital evaporating. The only difference, this time, the warning signs are flashing earlier. The governor's dilemma. So what's Governor Kelly doing about it? She's caught between competing pressures. On one hand, Kansas farmers desperately need property tax relief to reduce their fixed costs. The legislature has tried 3 times to raise property tax exemptions from $42,000 to $100,000. Kelly vetoed all 3 attempts. Her concern? She's haunted by the Sam Brownback tax experiment that left Kansas with 4-day school weeks and crumbling roads. She doesn't want to repeat those mistakes. But while she's playing it safe with the budget, the farm economy is in free fall. The state does have options. Governor Kelly ended her 2nd term with the largest budget surplus in history while cutting property and income taxes for Kansas families. Kansas revenues in August 2024 came in $23 million above projections. The money exists. The question is whether the political will exists to use it before it's too late. Here's the brutal reality facing Kansas agriculture in 2025. With uncertainty over profitability and lower commodity prices, economists hope land values go back to a slower, normal growth rate of about 2%. But hope isn't a strategy. Looking ahead to the remainder of 2025, values likely will experience downward pressure according to Frontier Farm Credit analysts. And when land values start falling while farmers are leveraged at 7% interest rates, the dominoes fall fast. One Kansas legislator warned what comes next. We're going to see a lot of land being transferred, and I'm really worried that Wall Street is going to own the land and our farmers are just going to become serfs. That's the real panic. Not just that land values are flattening, but that when they do fall, family farmers won't be able to buy. Wall Street investors with cheap institutional capital will. The Kansas farmland market is sending a clear signal. The boom is over, and the hangover is just beginning. Governor Kelly can't stop commodity prices from falling. She can't force the Federal Reserve to cut rates faster. but she can give farmers breathing room on property taxes. She can support agricultural credit programs. She can prepare for the credit crisis that lenders are already predicting. The question is whether she'll act before 40% of lenders' predictions come true and land values actually start declining. Because right now, Kansas farmers aren't panicking about land values flattening. They're panicking about what happens when they start falling while they're still drowning in 7% debt. The 2025 growing season will tell us whether this is just a correction or the beginning of the next great Kansas farm crisis. And if history is a guide, by the time everyone admits it's a crisis, it'll already be too late.